What's up, everyone? Welcome to the weekly program. At the moment, I'm just waiting a little bit for more people to join in and for Pete. Today, our guest is Pete Wright. Yay! And he's here already. I'm gonna join him in the conversation. Yo!
Hey! How's it going, man?
How are you, brother? You good?
I'm good, mate. This is fun.
Oh,
I've never
yeah.
done this before.
Can you hear me well and see me well?
Yeah, it's not too bad, mate. Yeah,
Cool,
it's pretty
cool.
good. I'm
Nah,
pretty happy.
perfect. Dude, how are you, man? How you been?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like, ridiculously hot today, isn't it? But other than that, I think my face looks a bit red. I've just realised. But no, other than that, I'm great, man. Yeah, I had a good day today. Yeah,
You've
it's
been
been nice.
catching some sun and some vitamin D.
Oh, yeah. Been, laying out in the sun.
Nice, man. Dude, first of all, obviously, like, I know you and I know what you do, but can you just give us like a little intro bio, like, so people like later on IGTV and YouTube can like know like what you do.
Absolutely, yeah. So my name is Pete, and I am a drummer in various different bands, Ducking Punches being one of them at the moment. I Say Goodbye, Phase Problem. Also, I run a little studio, which is here, called The Compound, and this is kind of where I do most of my creating, do a lot of recording from here as well, so I collaborate with a lot of other bands. Yeah, and I'm into yoga, meditation, keeping my mind healthy, keeping my body healthy. I'm a big advocate of being vegan. So yeah, I'm excited to kind of chat through all these different vibes with you and
Cool,
see
man.
where we go, man. I'm excited.
Sorry, brother. You said like you're doing like loads of recordings, and especially now in these times, you're probably doing a lot of recordings there in the compound, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think now's a time where, I actually, I mean, I would normally spend half my time like you, like touring.
Yeah.
And obviously, since lockdown, we've, collectively just seen our lives and our plans kind of being decimated day by day, week by week. And at the moment, there's kind of no idea really when this is gonna change and when we're gonna go back to doing what we normally do. Which can be a bit of a bummer, But also on the flip side, I feel what's kind of been interesting about this whole pandemic is again, it's finding those positives and finding like a new source of living and a different way of living. And definitely for me, I mean, I was doing a bit of recording here before. But suddenly since lockdown, I've been doing, I don't know, 10, 20 times the amount of recording here. Now that's because I'm about more, so I can offer my services more. But I think also what's kind of interesting is you've got this whole kind of wealth of musicians who, maybe at this, maybe they can't quite support themselves doing music full time. So maybe they're working a job. Hi, Steve. Maybe they're working a job and they're in a band at weekends or whatever. And actually, if they've been furloughed, if they can't work for whatever reason, I mean, musicians are actually being very creative at the moment. Actually the output that is coming from musicians is incredible.
Yeah.
Not every musician, because not everyone is feeling that creative spark right now, which again is cool as well. If you're not feeling it, then that's cool. But what is interesting is yeah, certainly a lot of musicians, their creative output has kind of gone through the roof, and I've just been very fortunate enough to be able to work alongside a lot of really ace people through this time. So yeah, it's been good.
Amazing, brother. And so did like I have like a little structure of a conversation. I don't know if you mind like going like topic by topic.
I'll follow you, man.
I would love to know, like, because actually I don't think I ever asked you this, and like we've been touring together and like like doing all this stuff together.
Yeah.
How did your like musical journey started? Like how did you start like playing drums or thinking about it, or
Okay.
you know, like when did this like when did the spark happen?
Sure. I mean, I would probably start off by saying my mum was, well, and she still is, incredibly musical. She's a great singer. She plays violin. She plays piano. She's a very musical person. And I guess as a kid, that was something that I was always around. You know, my mum was always in shows, or you know, doing musicals, or she played violin, like fiddle in like a ceilidh band. So we used to have like barn dances, used to go to barn dances and do all of that. So I think just from an early age, just music was always around, you know. And what was nice about it is my parents had very eclectic music tastes. So I say one moment my mum might be listening to some Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, and then the next moment she'd be putting like The Police on. Or she was a massive fan of like Phil Collins and Genesis and Fleetwood Mac, Carole King, you know, but also then she was quite into opera as well. So you'd end up, you know, being surrounded by a lot of different genres, but there was always music, you know, whether we were in the car, whether my mum was cooking, you know, if we were having a bath, whatever, music was always there, you know. And then I guess when I hit that age of being able to play an instrument, you know, when I was maybe 11 or 12, because my mum played violin, my brother, who's 2 years older, he'd also started playing violin. It became like a rite of passage. Like, now the next generation, must now play the violin, which I did, you know. And I had lessons for 2 or 3 years. I did my grade 1, I did my grade 2. I was playing in orchestras. But it never gave me that spark. It was very traditional music lessons, and it didn't excite me, you know. And around about that time, I was, you know, it was kind of like the Britpop era, you know. So you had bands, you know, like Pulp and Oasis and Blur, you know, and all these numerous bands, and Radiohead. I remember Radiohead being one of the first bands I got into. Smashing Pumpkins, I got into at an early age. And at that time, I was just moving from my middle school onto high school. And I remember my first music lesson at high school, a friend sitting next to me said, "Oh, you should play the bassoon." And I was like, okay, maybe I could play the bassoon. So I suggested it to the music teacher. Said, "Oh, you know, maybe I could play bassoon." And they were like, "Well, we don't really have a bassoon laying around, but we have someone who comes in and does drum lessons." I was like, "Oh, well, why not? I'll do drums." So I started up having like these weekly drum lessons at school with an amazing teacher called Janelle, who.
How old are you?
This was when I started high school, so I was 13, I guess, 12 or 13.
Okay.
And yeah, I give a shout out to my first teacher, Janelle, who taught me a hell of a lot. And actually, in all honesty, in that first 20-minute group lesson with another 3 kids probably, I literally sat down on the kit, held some drumsticks in my hand and thought, this is it. This has got me. And it's amazing, actually. And again, now coming full circle, and maybe we'll talk about this later, being a teacher, it is amazing how sometimes, not all the time, but very, very occasionally, like a kid will come in for their first lesson and they'll sit down and you can just tell, just tell it's the instrument for them, you know. And that's really exciting now to see it from a teacher's perspective. And I think as a pupil, I definitely felt that from that very first lesson. And I just got ingrained, you know. And luckily, I lived out on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and it was kind of the ideal location to make as much noise as you can. So literally within a few months, I bugged my parents enough to buy me my first drum kit, and I was on it all the time, like all the time. Looking back now, yeah, I think I realized how much time I actually spent as a kid. And again, funnily enough, I would I like to see some of my students spend that much time on it, because it would be, you know, I'd be at school, I'd rush home as quickly as I could. I would literally maybe grab a drink and then go straight into my drum room and play 3-4 hours. And it was like that day after day after day. On weekends, I would look out for, hi Lucy, I'd really, really be excited for the weekends, because it meant that I would have the whole 2 days solid that I could be on my kit. So yeah, that's kind of where it started off, really.
That's like that's real commitment, man, especially for a kid, you know. I can relate to that because I obviously like studied like classical music as well. So how is like the experience of like before we get into bands and punk music, how's the experience of like being like a kid in school, you know, but like having like this kind of like vision and drive for something, you know, like in my experience, sometimes my friends in school didn't understood why I was like hanging out with them like all of the time and stuff. Like how is that like experience for you? Did you just like it was fine for you because it felt right to just
I mean funny enough, I didn't really think about it. It's just what I did.
Yeah,
that's what I wanted to do. There was never any thought of I must go practice, or I must do an hour practice or 2 hours practice, or I can't practice because I want to go see my friends. It was just, that's what I did. Right. I got in from work and I wanted to practice, and it wasn't a chore. I just loved it. You know, there was no kind of preconceived ideas of, I was like 12, 13 years old, you know, you got no ideas about being in a band or doing it as a job or anything. It was just a pure love of the instrument and the pure love of music. And I think it was just the age where, you know, it was like the love of the instrument at the same time of finding out the love of bands as well. And it became more than just became more than just, you know, songs on the radio and hit songs or whatever. It became more than that. It became more about bands and albums and studying like previous albums and you know, so it became more than just songs on the radio, I guess. So it became a bit more of an obsession.
Right. And did like what like how many years did it take like from actually starting drumming to like getting your first band, you know, like and how did you like got into like playing in bands and like how did that started? I
mean, yeah, again, I guess this is where kind of another shout out to my drum teacher happens again, because what was happening is at the school she was giving drum lessons, but also she was doing like percussion workshops as well. So what would happen is once a week at a lunchtime, if you had drum lessons, you could go into the main music room, and they would set up all the percussion that they had, and you'd go on different percussion like congas, bongos, guairos, you know, whatever, you know, it would just be a whole wealth of different percussion instruments, and then you could just experiment. And really that happened within a couple of months of starting drum lessons. So and that was a very vital and important learning curve, because already from learning an instrument, I was already learning how to like relate and connect to other musicians, you know. So that didn't come later, that came straight away.
Can you hear me, Pete?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Something happened here.
There's a lot of people on Instagram right now. But yeah, so it started with a percussion band, and within really of a few weeks of starting drum lessons, I was getting involved in them, and it was like a really good learning curve, learning an instrument at the same time as learning how to play with other people.
Yeah,
that was hugely important. And actually, as time went on, it went from just being a percussion band, suddenly, like, I know there was a bass player and a guitar player, and then there was some singers, and before long we were like a rock percussion band. So we would play like all these rock songs like Presidents of the United States and yeah, Blur songs and stuff. We'd be doing all like the Britpop songs, but with like congas.
Oh, right.
A percussion style. And yeah, we just used to do like performances at school and assemblies and, you know, Christmas performances. And then we started to do performances out of school. And yeah, we would just, I mean, yeah, it was, again, crazy looking back, because yeah, I was probably 13 or 14 and playing shows already. You know, and I love.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah, no, I just loved it from that instance. And then a friend in my year, her sister played guitar and was in kind of this band, and they were looking for a drummer. And so then they went to a different school. I went to school in a place called Dereham, and I went to Nefford High School, and they went to Northgate High School, which was like the rival school. But yeah, somehow like we decided like it's okay, like we can go to different schools but be in the same band. So then we just started up this band again. I was like 14, 15, I guess. And yeah, it just took off. Like we got like management, we got yeah, it just got mad. So we were going down to like playing London and you know, all over the place. And I was still at high school. It was really weird, you know, because nice. Yeah, I'd be doing my schoolwork during the days, and then suddenly in the evenings I'd be like, oh, I've got a gig to go and play.
Dude, and like that was like when you were like probably like 15, something like that. Like yeah. when did like the punk scene, or also I've heard like some like really crusty stuff that you released like a couple of years ago. Not a couple, way more than a couple.
More than 2 years ago now.
So like when did you discover like punk music, and what was like the feeling? Because then I guess that was like the style you probably like embraced more like throughout the years. Correct me if I'm wrong.
My yoga teachers just joined.
Yeah.
I got yoga straight after this at 6 o'clock. So I'm gonna be doing some talking and doing some stretching and limbering up at the same time. So yeah, I mean, this is going back to that band that I was talking about with my friends. I remember being given a mixtape from the guitarist, and on one side it was Dookie by Green Day, and on the other side was Rancid, Out Come the Wolves. And I just remember taking that mixtape home and putting it in my little cassette player and pressing play. And I mean, I put the Rancid side on first just because that was the one that was rewound. And yeah, Maxwell Murder came on, and it was like, whoa, this is like twice as quick as anything else I've ever listened to. And then the bass solo comes in, and you're like, wow. And Rancid really, you know, probably hearing Out Come the Wolves, like probably most people kind of my age, my generation, and even younger, you know, Rancid was that big turning point. I mean, I've still got the PUNX, and you know, like the Lars Friedrichsen tattoos, you know. So yeah, that was a big turning point, definitely. Rancid and Green Day.
Nice, man. And dude, like, did after that first band, you played like loads of different bands before Dan talked to you and started like Ducking Punches, right? Can you talk a little bit about like the progression like of those bands like on the way till you got to Ducking Punches? And obviously like even though like you're playing Ducking Punches, you're also playing other projects, but can you just go through like the little like story?
I'll try.
I know you're playing Bad Ideas.
This would probably take 3 or 4 days to go through them all.
All right.
You know, drummers are always like sort of but I mean, I guess so when I was 17, I went to college. I went to music college, and then I moved to London for a little bit. Didn't like London, so I moved back, and I went into my local studio one day and looked at, there was always like a little pinboard up, you know, like an old school pinboard with musicians wanted, musicians advertised. You know, because it's before really the internet was about, but you know, forums and stuff, you didn't really do much of that. So
Yeah.
you know, you had to go old school, go into studios and shops and look to see who was out there who you could work with. So I went into this studio, and there was just a little sign up saying drummer required for a band, influences Operation Ivy, Rancid, etc., etc. And I was like, wow, this sounds great. So I literally called them, because I don't think really you texted even each other in the day. So I called him up, and it was a guy called Tim, and I went out to meet him like the next day, and I met him and Sue Tebble, who everyone watching this who's been involved in the Norwich punk scene will know Sue Tebble for sure. And yeah, we went for a drink and got chatting, and that was a band that was called Protection Racket, which was a very kind of like oi influenced ska punk band, so a bit like the Skoy Dats, or you know, it was really great. You know, it's kind of like proper traditional oi punk with some sort of like ska influence in there. And yeah, I joined them, and it was great. And again, we ended up, you know, playing with bands like Stiff Little Fingers and The Damned and Bad Manners, and I learned a lot. And I guess, yeah, I was like 18, 19 at the time. And then, as things always do, as you get older and you play these shows, you meet more people, and you plan a show, someone comes up to you afterwards, you get chatting to them, you become friends with them. That leads into a band. That leads into a band. I hate that term, social networking, you know, but actually, when you're a musician and when you want to be in a band, that's a lot of the time that is the only way to do it. Networking. I know at the moment we're in lockdown, so we can't do too much of that. But hopefully, you know, we can all hang out again at some time. And yeah, it's like meeting like-minded people. And yeah, definitely, it just progressed and progressed and progressed. And before I knew it, I said yes to so many bands. I couldn't even remember what bands I was in. You know, it was. I think the high point I think was 14 bands I was in at one point. And that was
at the same time.
Yeah, at the same time. It was stupid, you know, but it was great. It was great at the same time, you know. And at that age, what else do you want to do?
Exactly.
You want to hang out with your friends. You want to play shows. You want to create music. You want to be involved. You know, you want to do what everyone else around you is wanting to do. So yeah, at that point, I was like, this is it now. You know, I didn't have a job. I was teaching drums by that point, so I wasn't working a normal 9 to 5. So I was teaching drums at the weekend and some evenings, and that left me a load of time to just get on with doing fun band stuff.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
And like, when did like Ducking Punches appear, and what was what was like the feeling of like what was like the feeling of like having a band that had the progression that Ducking Punches had, you know, like before I joined, I was like a fan of the band, and I watched like you guys playing Reading Festival, like all these like big stages. Like, what was that experience of like basically you were like a punk kid, like playing like with different bands, all that mattered was the love for music and your passion. But like, how was that experience of like perceiving like not obviously like a huge success, but like you guys are established, you know? So
yeah,
what was like that what was that road, you know, like what did it take as well to
I think what's really interesting from my own personal point of view is like what I said earlier about the kind of practicing as a kid, and it's just like it's like almost like an intuition. You just go and do it, and you don't really think about the ramifications, or there's kind of almost no set purpose why you're doing it. You're doing it just for the love, and I think Ducking Punches was always, well, and continues to always be like that. It's very like organic. Yeah, it's never been forced. We've never set out to do anything, you know. And from day one, I mean, how I first met Dan, a good friend of ours called Rich Halls, who lived in Norwich at the time. He used to, you know, sometimes put on house shows, and it was in the summer, and it was like an acoustic show. We used to do these like acoustic punk rock house crawls and stuff, and we went to Richard's house, and at the time I was playing in a band called This Business Is Closed, and we were doing like an acoustic kind of set, and we turned up, we played, and that was great. And then I think afterwards, after us, or maybe two after us, this skinny little young guy with like this fringe, you know, and black nail polish and stuff, you know, just this little spotty little kid got up with this huge acoustic guitar, and this lovely nerdy violin player, and they started playing, and it was like, whoa, who are these guys? Like, this is incredible. And watched them play, and went up to them afterwards and introduced myself, and he was like, oh yeah, I'm Dan, I'm from like Stamford, Peterborough way. I've just moved to Norwich. Yeah, I don't really know anyone here, but yeah, my band's called Ducking Punches. It's just like a solo thing at the moment. And I was like, man, let's keep in contact. Like, I really like your stuff. And then really it moved on to the first couple of EPs, where then Dan was just like, I wanted to still keep it acoustic, but I just want some simple percussion laid over the top. So we recorded that at my dad's house, and that was the first couple of EPs. And that was just purely using like mallets on cymbals, brushes on a snare drum. You know, we just used whatever percussion there was, really. And it was me and Rob Willer, who you know. He was a bass player for This Business Is Closed, and he had a double bass. So Dan was like, let's put some double bass on it as well. So we ended up like recording these two EPs. We only did probably 3 or 4 shows as that kind of lineup. We did like a weekender with River Jumpers, which was really cool. So again, we sort of started to make all these different connections, and yeah. And then I guess from that point, me and Dan then started doing like another like more full band, which was called Broken Window Effect, which was more kind of our love of bands like Sam I Am, you know, and that kind of melodic kind of, yet slight gruff punk. Hi, Mully. And yeah, we started doing this band called Broken Window Effect, and yeah, we did that for 3 or 4 years, I guess, maybe, and again did some really cool shows. But at the same time, kind of Ducking Punches was running alongside that. And then when sort of Broken Window sort of fizzled out, as things sometimes do, me and Dan were like, oh, well, what if we kind of do Ducking Punches, but maybe do it a little bit more full band? So we sort of played a little bit more Broken Window Effect, but with Ducking Punches songwriting. And that's when we got Cal and Sophie involved. I would love to do more Broken Window Effect. I miss that band so much. Rob always asks us to come and play Cambridge with Broken Window Effect, and honestly, somehow we will do this. We've been saying for about 5 years we'll do it, but we will. But then we got Cal and Sophie involved, and then our friend Serge, who played violin, got involved, and that was kind of the starting point of Ducking Punches, really. And then
that's like the lineup I remember, you know, like that's like the lineup that always like comes to my mind when like Ducking Punches. I see that like picture, you know, of you guys, you know.
And I think again for us, that was, I mean, it's always been a special time doing Ducking Punches, but again, you know, you look back and you go, that was really exciting, because that was our first time doing like a full band album. That was our first time doing a music video. That was our first time going on tour. That was our first time writing songs as a full band. You know, so as awesome as all the other memories are, which are equally awesome, yeah, there's certain ones from those early days that definitely will always be there for sure.
Fuck yeah, man.
Yeah, I guess going back to your original question, I've kind of gone the long way round, but going back to your original question, it was always a very organic rise. You know, we never set out to do anything, and playing things like Reading and Leeds and all the others, 2000 Trees and Download, Punk Rock Holiday, whatever. It's just always been natural.
Yeah.
We're asked to do it. Yeah, we'll do that. You know?
Yeah, that is my experience, like with Ducking Punches, that like we're like pretty much DIY. We sort ourselves out and do like pretty much everything by ourselves, and people just actually like believe in the band and keep like pushing and booking the band. That's like something that was really cool about, like, yeah, like perceiving like from the inside how like this works, you know. And it's cool, like you say it like really well, like it's organic, and it is, like it is
Yeah.
But another thing, man, like, because we're already like half hour in the conversation, like what lessons, man, do you take from all these years? Because like then with Ducking Punches and the other bands, you started touring more, you started doing like loads of things. What do you take, like what lessons do you take from this, like this scene, the punk scene, or like whatever you want to call it, but like this scene that has like this wonderful people that you're like, what lessons do you take from it?
Oh, blimey, that's a big question. We got half an hour, right? I'm gonna try and take breath in half an hour. I mean, so many lessons. I mean, I think again, I was of that age where it hit me at the right time. You know, I felt like I needed a bit of a purpose, and I needed like a little scene to be a part of. And I think that's probably where a lot of us feel, you know, as outcasts or different, or you know, geeky or whatever. I think a lot of us have grown up with that feeling of disconnect from main society. Yeah. And I certainly did. As I got older and older, I realized what society is telling me, what I should be striving for, and what is going to make me happy. They're not the sort of things that I want. And the things that I wanted was like real human kindness and connection and empathy, and looking at the world in just generally a more kindful way. And I think that is what is perceived about the punk scene. Yeah. People say punk who don't know punk, and they think, oh, it's just like jumping up and down, playing loud music and spitting and grabbing each other around the throat and stuff. But it can't be. Certainly the punk I'm into, it couldn't be so different to that. It's all about equality and activism and social justices. You know, it's about pushing and striving for a better society and a more just society and a more caring society. It's not about like destroying society.
Exactly. No, I totally get you, man, and I feel the same. And it's so good to see your perspective on how like what lessons punk like actually taught you, because probably if today you're vegan was because of that scene, you know.
Absolutely.
Like a lot of even like doing yoga or even meditating or all this kind of stuff, like it comes natural with like a scene of open-minded people, you know, like that's yes. Why I think is like super important. Like it was for me and it was for you and still is, you know, like this community, this scene, you know. I mean, I feel in some way like this is our way to celebrate life, you know.
Yeah.
Punk is just a way for us to express ourselves and what a way as well, right?
Absolutely. And what's brilliant about it is you can do that in so many different ways. You know, we've all done it in so many different ways. You know, you can go watch some hardcore band and drink 3 or 4 pints and do circle pits and mosh about, and you can do that, or you can drink a cup of tea and sit down on your meditation cushion and meditate for half an hour. You can get in your garden. You can grow vegetables. You can do all of these very different things, and they still have that same little ethos of
Yeah,
punk. And
exactly.
what I liked about it, and this isn't always the case, but what I really liked about our scene is you could be any one of those things, and there was like very little judgment. You'd sometimes get the judgment, but on the whole, there was no judgment.
Yeah.
You were all there for the same thing, to have a
Yeah.
good time, but also to discuss some very important, pressing issues. You know, so it was that marring of like the serious side and the fun side, and you get this nice kind of meeting in the middle.
Ah, cool, brother. Cool. Really, really nice perspective, brother. This is really nice. Man, another thing, like going to another subject. You teach drums, and you teach drums for like quite a while now, right? Like when did you
15.
start?
I started teaching when I was 15.
Oh, right, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Like so like what's the sensation like, and why did you wanted to like pass the knowledge on like by being a teacher, like because there like there's loads of musicians and some people don't teach music, you know, but
Yeah.
I feel because my father was like a little bit the same, there's like something behind like the you know, like the want to
Yes.
be a
And I don't buy that very stuffy old school vibe of if you're a good musician you don't teach, and only the musicians who don't make it are the ones who teach. I don't buy into that at all. I think that's a load of rubbish, you know, because there's very sometimes that stigma of, you know, if you're teaching, you're only teaching because you're not a good enough musician or you haven't quite made it, and that teaching is almost like, you know, a second tier, you know, thing after playing shows, and that is absolute rubbish. You know, the way I view it is you can and you should do both, you know, if you want to, if you're good
exactly.
enough. There's absolutely no reason why if you are touring full time, I mean, and let's be honest, by full time, you know, I don't mean every day of the week, but most people who are teaching what we would class full time, you still have that time in between tours where you can get lessons in. I mean, there's touring musicians who teach while on the road. You know, they do Skype lessons from the tour bus or from their dressing room. You know,
Wow.
it can be done, you know. I mean, I've not necessarily taught lessons while on tour, but I've certainly been sending material to students and guiding students through what they need to be doing while I'm on.
I've been watching, man. Like you had like a different approach in this time, right? And you started as well this like online, like this videos and online lessons.
Yeah.
Like what is like the feedback that you're having from those videos, and like and also like is it a different experience for you doing this kind of like approach when you're talking to a camera? Like how different it is?
Yeah, I mean it's odd. I mean, I think the first time I did it, I felt really weird about it, and it felt really unnatural. Just like you say, having a camera and just talking to it felt really unnatural. But then, yeah, I just came to realize that actually, if I talk to the camera and I watch it back and I don't like it, I press delete. Like I haven't lost anything. And the only way you're going to get better at doing it is by doing it and redoing it and doing it and doing it. And it was just something that I wanted to do. I mean, mainly the decision to do it was for my actual students that I teach. I mean, most of them, you know, luckily they've managed and wanted to continue doing lessons online. So I'm using Zoom to do these lessons, which have been absolutely brilliant. It's been like a really good learning curve for everyone. Again, it's positives come out of these negative situations.
No, obviously.
And yeah, these videos, you know, the idea was just to be able to give more content to my students between lessons. And like some of my students, they live they live right out in the countryside, so they can't even make video calls, that their internet service is so bad. A couple don't have drum kits at home.
All right.
You know, a couple are self-employed and they're not earning any money, so they can't do lessons. So there's been lots of reasons why certain people can't do these online lessons at the moment. So I thought, well, if I do some video, then at least I can be sending some content out and giving them hopefully something to kind of keep them going through this time. A lot of kids I teach, especially, you know, they've had to come out of school, they've had to come out of college. You know, it's been incredibly disappointing for people who have been working towards exams.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, whereas people should be, yes, studying and gearing up for stuff, they're literally confined to their homes. So, you know, it was more about giving those guys and girls content to begin with. And then, you know, through the beauty of YouTube, you know, anyone can pick it up. So it's been really nice. You know, there's people who I didn't think would necessarily be interested who have sent me some nice comments, and even people who aren't drummers have been watching them and going, oh, this is kind of interesting.
No, but that's cool, brother. That's like the whole next like level and dimension of like online, you know? Yeah. Like people might watch you because they relate to you, but they're not drummers, or they want to learn, or they just like your vibe, you know? Like it's cool like to see that it's not only about a drum and a teacher. It has like like your personal vibe in it as well, you know? It's cool. It's cool, man. I'll have to go to the next I
thought you were gonna say I need to go to the bathroom.
Oh, not right now. I thought you were like gonna
walk off and like leave me here on my own.
Oh man.
It's solo, Nelson. Actually, I need you with me.
Oh man. But yeah, dude, like one thing that is like one thing that inspires me like about you is the fact that, like, first of all, you're a great musician, and being on stage with you is like fantastic. And I feel like the vibe, like even when I was just doing like replacement, like the first tour, like I was replacing Marcus, you know, it was so cool to like it was so cool to just share the stage with you, you know, like, and yeah, I'm just like checking the comments here, man, like.
Yeah, good one, Mally.
Oh man, but
yeah,
yeah,
luckily.
like,
anyway, keep going.
basically, dude, like that's those are like the thing. Some of the things that inspire me about like your person and your personality is the fact that like you're not only a good musician, but you have like this kind heart. Like you're always able to talk to someone, to like, you know, give like a kind word or a hug, or like not now, but like, you know. But also there's some people don't know, some people know, but you're also a father, you have a family, and you're a really like good, kind father, you know. That's like for the experience. I've been like in your house, and I've been how like do you treat like your family and your kid is like, it's something really cool. And sometimes like how hard is to manage that like tour life with having like a kid and a family and teaching, like how is that possible, man? Like you are like a champion on this, you know, like lists and organization and like time scheduling and all this kind of stuff. Can you explain us a little bit more about what
I mean, yeah, it's incredibly lovely words for you to say, first of all, Nelson. That means a lot coming from someone who you know how much you mean to me and how much you've taught me over the years as well. So that's a really kind thing to say. But I mean, in terms of organization, I mean, that I don't know whether it's kind of an OCD thing that I've had my entire life. I remember being a teenager and even then being quite a stickler for where my shoes were, where my clothes went, making sure my bed was always made. Like, I remember just always having these little OCD traits. And sometimes they can be annoying, and sometimes I try and distance myself from them. But actually, there's something very good about having these OCD traits when you're self-employed and when you're having to juggle a lot of different tasks. You become quite efficient and you become efficient at making lists. And definitely for me, list making is everything for me. I'd say two things: list making and Google Calendar are the two lifesavers. I mean, like literally, I'm at the desk at the moment, and I have one thing here which is full of lists. I have a secondary to-do list which is full of lists. I have this, which is, these are all my drum notes going back from 2016. And, hi Matt, you're like this. Actually, yeah, there was some notes on here. I don't know where they are now. There were some notes about Matt in here somewhere.
Oh, nice.
I have notes. I have another little notes with other things. So I'm just surrounded by lists and notes, and that's okay. Saving a bee. There we go. That's what I like to hear, Matt. Beautiful. See, good people. We have a lot of good people here. And I find if I wasn't that OCD and that organized, I would just be everywhere. I'm unfortunately one of these people that I can't trust my brain to be able to remember and do all of these things. So I tend to have a list of like projects that I need to do, projects I need to record, teaching that I need to do. I keep like lesson plans for all of my students. I then have, again, I have another notepad which has any drum ideas. My kit as well, I don't know if you can see, but my kit is set up to record like 24 hours a day. So literally, if I just sit here and I have an idea, I can just jump on my kit, I can press record. Again, I can then just have like a whole compilation of ideas ready to go, basically. So I think just list making, organization, and Google Calendar is really good. Like my wife as well, Lucy, she runs a theatre company as well. So between us, like me being a musician and Lucy being in theatre, like we tour. Again, between us, we tour quite a lot. So yeah, trying to juggle childcare is kind of interesting. So we just have this shared online calendar, and it is as simple as whoever gets on there first, whoever books their first thing in, that's it. So if I look in it, and if a tour is offered for this date, I look in my phone. If those dates are free, it's going in. That pings straight onto Lucy's phone, so she knows I'm not allowed to do anything. She's on childcare duty that week.
But it's really good. Like, and I think it's good to show people that like relationships work like this. You know, there's like commitment. There's like a lot of like it's love, obviously, but has something about like commitment and like and understanding. You know, like it's incredible, man. Like I'm speaking this because obviously I spend time with you guys, and I have like this experience like in first person of watching you guys like treat Alfie, and like, you know, like how do you like the dynamic of your family, you know, and and it's really cool, man. Like how you guys found like a common ground where you work things out, you know. That's awesome, you know. That's
I
really
think
cool.
what was quite integral to some of that was the fact that I was in bands and I was playing and I was touring like before Lucy came into my life, and like Lucy was also going out, and she was in choirs, and you know, so she was doing stuff as well. So we were always very much from day one, we were like, we're our own. We're great as a couple, you know, and we've got our thing as a couple, but we're still two entities that have our own lives and our own things to do. And, you know, I'm very lucky that, you know, she supports me through all of this. You know, I mean, it would be one of those things, again, not in pandemic world that we live in, but if I got a message, say right now, saying, this tour's come up, we go tomorrow and we'll be away for 3 weeks. Like, at least it'd be like, cool, have fun, you know, and that's what you kind of need and want in a relationship when your lives are like this.
Yes.
And having Alfie kind of, I mean, Alfie's 5 now, you know, but again, so we've always been doing what we've been doing since Alfie was born, and we were very much like, having a child isn't going to change our dynamic at all. To a reason, you know, having a child will always change your outlook and everything, you know. But in many ways, going back to time management, having a child is the best thing to do, because you suddenly realize that you've wasted so much time of your life. Like, honestly, you have a child, and you get used to these points. Like, I remember when he was younger, he would have a 20-minute nap during the day, and he'd be like, as soon as his eyes closed, you'd be like, 20 minutes. I got 20 minutes to do as much as I can. You'd do all the washing up, you'd do the cleaning, you'd cook your tea, you'd hang the washing up, you'd do all your laundry, you know, you would do everything, and stuff that pre-child would maybe take you half a day to do. You do it in 20 minutes. And it's the same now, you know, when Alfie's at school, he's now at school. When he's at school for those few hours, man, like, I can fit in 2 or 3 days worth of what I used to do. Because again, it's that whole time management, and it's brilliant. So I'm not advocating go and have a child right now, but if you ever struggle with timing, having a child is brilliant. Unless your name is Alan and you play in a band called I Said Goodbye, because he has 2 children and he's got the worst timekeeping of anyone I've ever met. He's dreadful. So it doesn't work for everyone.
Dude, man, that was a good comment. Thank you. Man, like, another thing, dude, like, recently, and I don't know if you're like okay to talk about this, but I think you are, because we're like in a kind of like.
Lost you, mate. There we go. You're
cool.
back again.
Cool. I'm back again. But like, with all this stuff, like, there's been obviously like all the stuff we're talking about is really positive and inspiring. But obviously, there's been like some parts of your life that you might struggle and stuff like that. Like, what kind of tools you use like nowadays to keep yourself centered, keep yourself healthy, not only like physically healthy but mentally healthy?
Yeah.
Like, what are like the things you do, you know? Because taking care of all of this, even if you have all the love in your heart, like all the love in the world in your heart, it's still challenging, you know? So yes. I want to understand what kind of practices do you do to keep yourself like up, you know, and with a good vibe?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess it first started, one of my students, like many years ago now, his mum was a yoga teacher. And at the time I was going through, again, I won't get into the whole story, but I had growth hormone deficiency as a kid. That left me with some health issues into adulthood, including osteoporosis, which I've got. So I was talking to her one day, because I used to have lots of issues with my spine and stuff, and she sort of suggested, well, maybe what we could do, why don't we start swapping drum lessons for yoga lessons? And I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Didn't really have any ideas other than this might be good for me, for my body, you know, good for my bones and my spine. And you know, as I was starting to get older, I was thinking, you know, this could be a good little thing to get into. So yeah, I started swapping drum lessons for yoga lessons, and I just found, again, much like when I first started playing the drums, that first time on a yoga mat was just so powerful, and it changed so many preconceptions that I had in my head. And I think what a lot of it was just that quietening it down, you know. Whereas again, that my OCD anxious tendencies, which are like, list, do this, which makes me productive, also leads me to suffering from anxiety, like a lot. Whereas yoga was then kind of like the way out of that. It was a way out of just going, right, brain, just stop for a moment. Let's just spend time centering and getting my thoughts, you know, obviously not suppressed, but quieting them down. And what started off as a very kind of a physical thing, then soon turned into this, well, it's great for my body, but it's even better for my head and for my brain. And then from that point, that's when I then started to research about like meditation more. And then I started to bring in meditation into the end of my yoga practices. And before long, I was like, actually, I'm enjoying the meditation as much, if not more so, than the yoga. And this is really doing something for me. And yeah, I guess I just kind of ran with that. And I met people along the way, you being included, who was someone who then showed me more and more what I can do and the power that is in here. You know, it's quite incredible, really. I'm definitely someone who has suffered with anxiety and depression on and off my whole life. And as soon as I feel that I'm going that way again, generally speaking, it's because I look and then I realize, oh, I'm not doing as much meditation as I was the week or two previously. And again, at this time in this pandemic, like now I would really recommend to like a lot of people to try this out, because it's something that I've always thought was like hippies and, you know, you like peace out, all of this. But actually there's like a real punk rock vibe to this. There's an absolutely brilliant book actually called The Punk Rock Yoga Manifesto, which goes very interestingly into the parallels between yoga, spirituality, not in a religious sense at all, because I'm an atheist, and punk rock, you know, and how those two kind of mar each other. Again, it's all about kind of stepping outside of society and viewing life in a very kind of different, radical manner. And yeah, that was brilliant. And actually, interestingly enough, I've because it's literally sitting up here, I keep grabbing props, sorry, but can I just give one shout out and one book recommendation for anyone who wants like a really powerful book to read at the moment? I don't know whether you've heard this. Guy called Matt Haig. It's called Notes on a Nervous Planet.
All right.
And I would recommend everyone to get this. The other book he wrote before this was Reasons to Stay Alive, which was more about his battle through kind of suicidal tendencies and depression. But yeah, this one in particular is brilliant. This is more based around trying to disconnect from, funny enough, as we're on it, technology and social media, but a way of trying to bring in like a healthy relationship to that, and a way of disconnecting from news. And it's not about ignorance. It's not about saying I don't want to know what's going on. It's more about taking what's going on and then trying to find a way to invigorate yourself and be strong through that. So that book, I would say, that was a game changer for me.
Cool, man. No, dude, it's incredible, man, to actually see like your progression as a human being and like going through all these different experiences. Like that's the main reason I want you to talk today, because like it's really inspiring having like people like you here and having the opportunity to speak with people like you. You know, it's incredible, and I'm really thankful for your time, brother. I just noticed we have 30 seconds left in this live. So
30 seconds,
dude. I'm really, really thankful for you joining today. You know, I hope you had a good time and a good conversation. And man, I'll see you soon, and I'll call you soon, brother.
Dude, man, don't leave it about an hour and 15 minutes because I'm going straight to yoga. It starts about 6 o'clock.
Oh, dude, we have 7 seconds now.
7 seconds. Buy this book.